Hello, this is Karen from Kaggy's Creations. Today we're going to wet felt a beautiful soft neck warmer. Here you can see it with a matching pink knitted hat. It's lovely and soft and made from alpaca wool. It sits on top of silk, so it's Nuno felted. First of all, you have to cut your silk for your base, and that needs to be 90 centimetres, so it can wrap round twice. Your resist, which you'll also be cutting, so you want 60 by 90 centimetres and a piece of margolin silk, and this obviously will take the wool felt through. Lay out your table. You want a towel and some bubble wrap, and then on the top of that you want to lay out your silk. You need a template to make a resist. A nice draw liner inside is useful. Put it height up and then fold the silk around it. Make sure you wet your silk to keep it all together. You're then going to shingle your base coloured wool. You're only going to put one layer on each side, and you're going to pull it out of your merino tops, and you're going to put it in shingles. I used this alpaca wool and it was very badly put together and it came out quite clumpy, so I had to really kind of spread it out as I went. So don't worry if you're not good at shingling out wool for wet felting. You'll find that you could spread it with your hands and move it around with your fingers and just sort of let it go. You need to push it over the sides, so that when you turn the silk with the resist inside it over, you can fold over the edges, so that eventually when you take this off it'll all be in one piece. Your resist sits inside the silk, the wool goes on the outside, the wool then wet felts through into the silk, binds it all together. Your join, which you can see in the foreground there, will be covered by wool, so you won't see where the silk meets, and it'll be one circular tube when you've finished. And don't worry, it looks rather large because this will shrink down quite a lot as you're felting it, and you'll see how I finish it at the very end. Now you're going to cover the pink shingling all the way over. Sorry if this sounds a little bit stuffed up, I've got a bit of a cold while I'm doing this. I'm just going to fast forward it slightly. So the video is going to speed up a little as you watch me shingle out the base layer of the pink excuse me, the pink alpaca wool. You can do this with ordinary merino. As you can see, I'm layering one particular side, getting that all covered. And then what I'm going to do then is wet that, so it starts to stick on the silk. Cover that with water as much as I can. You can use a normal spray bottle if you don't have anything else. Then I'm going to put another layer of plastic over the top and then switch it over to the other side, and then you can see me pulling in the sides where the wool is stretched over, and the other side the silk was already wet. I'd wetted both sides of the silk, and then I'm going to shingle out the base layer on the next side. This one you don't have to overlap the edges because you've already brought that overlapping from the first side. As we said with Nuno felting, you don't need your work to be very thick. The silk binds the wool together, so you don't need layers and layers of wool, and it makes a very lovely soft drape. You can see me finishing shingle. As you can see, I'm struggling a bit pulling some of the wool apart because it's coming out in clumps. But to be honest, it doesn't have to be a complete even coverage. Do the best you can, because the whole point of Nuno felting is that the silk will migrate into the wool and you'll have a lovely kind of texture of fabric. Here we are, almost finished the first side. Got loads of little bits of the wool now. Unfortunately, it was a bit badly spun, I think, where I got that from. And then we're going to wet over the second side. I've got what they call a dropper, where you squeeze up and then you can just drop it over. There is no soap in this water at the moment. I'm just wetting it out. We don't need soap yet. We'll add soap shortly, but we're just trying to wet it out so that when we press it, we press the air out from the wool. Just finishing getting some water around the edges, and then I'm going to put my bubble wrap down again in a moment. Just squeeze the water through the wool as I press my hands on it in a minute, just to get it nice and flat. Here we go, second load of bubble wrap. Just pressing my hands through it, just trying to squeeze the water basically through the wool, get the air out of it so that it's adhering onto the silk. And so basically you've made a very large tube of silk covered in wool around a plastic resist to keep it from sticking to itself in the centre. The top and the bottom obviously are the open ends, which is going to be where your head goes through. We're taking off the bubble wrap now. You can see it's sort of blotchy as the water is thicker in some places and the wool. I'm just collecting some nice kind of contrast. I've done green silk with pink wool, and then I've got a nice green yarn which I'm going to stretch around to make a pattern on the top. I'm going to make sure that when I press this across, I leave some ends either side so I can then turn the work over and wrap it around the other side. So I'm going to kind of just loop it and scroll it around. You can put any design you want, or you don't have to put anything at all. You can just have it in a plain colour if you want to, or just put some vicos, which you'll see me putting on shortly. Any kind of embellishing fibres that you want to actually put on. But make sure that if you use yarn, it is wool-based yarn, not acrylic, otherwise it will not felt and it will just fall off basically in the process. So we are cutting another little piece, starting at the bottom. As you can see, I'm leaving some long ends at the sides so that I can use those on the reverse of the work shortly. Just pulling that yarn. These are various different bits of yarn that I've got from different projects. This is just a plain green, but you could use something with a variegated colour. I just wanted to pick out the green, a little bit of the silk, which will show through. The green and pink look quite nice. And then I'm going to add some blue vicos shortly. I'm going to put the cover back on, the bubble wrap, so that I can squeeze the water into the yarn and make the yarn kind of sit. There's enough water on the piece to grab hold of the yarn, and I'm going to flip it over again so that I can then take the bubble wrap off the other side and put the yarn ends around and lay some more yarn. So just catching the ends for the other side of the work, bring in the cross in sort of a random scrolling fashion. There we are. So that's the first part of my embellishment. Preparation and the laying out, the cutting out, and putting all the layers of wool on is a big part of the process. and after that the effort comes with the rolling and the actual felting. Now this is some vicose, silky vicose, slightly contrasting colour, bluey sort of turquoise, and I'm just going to put that on. Now I will speed this up in a second, but you'll find if your hands are a bit damp, and I did not dry my hands off properly, and also you're touching the wet thing, it sticks to your fingers, so it's a bit difficult to get off and get into the work. I'm just putting mine random, I'm not particularly wanting it to be in any way. You can use something like a cocktail stick to pull it off your fingers and push it into the work. I just persevere with pushing my fingers and rubbing it off. I'm going to just split the video now so that you can speed this part up a bit. So I'm going to put it on both sides. So this is the final bits of the blue. That's on one side. It's covered all over. Flip it over. Finish off the blue vicose on the second side. Again, my hands are sticking, but I'm managing to drag it around, and when you see the end, I'm quite surprised how well it came out. Covering that all over. Right, so that's my layout done. Now you can see I've got some olive oil soap in my hand, and I'm going to just rub my hands with a bit of soap. I haven't got anything over the wool at the moment, and I'm being very careful, just patting my hands on it to get some soap onto it. I keep putting my hands full of soap, and I'm just going to put some soap by dabbing it into the work. Get some soap there. You'll see in a moment I'll cover it with some fine netting to help hold it together while I'm rubbing, but this is just to get a little bit of soap. Again, olive oil soap, quite dense, it comes off in your hands quite quickly. You can pat it in. The wetting had no soap in it at all, so this is just to put it on afterwards. And it also means I can pat down the yarn, make sure everything sort of is sticking onto the silk and holding into place. Template is a little bit, the resist is a little bit longer than the actual silk, because when your silk is wet it just pulls in a little bit on the sides. You need it just to poke out either end. Now I'm going to put some netting. My netting only fits halfway over this project, so I'm just going to do half at a time, and just tucking in anything that's still sticking out, fold it around. So the tube technically is got the design running all the way around it. Afterwards, when you take out the resist, we're able to get rid of the sort of seams, and you won't see anything but a nice smooth surface. Right, so I've got in my hand the soap, and I'm just rubbing it over. That's it, over the top there. No, I haven't got the soap in my hand, that's just my hands over the top, working with a bit of soap that was on my hands. Right, and then I just put them over again. I just work a tiny bit of soap there, put it on the side, and then just spread that over, rubbing it in. If you want to know a little bit more about how wet felting actually works, and Nuno Felting, which is really wet felting on silk, it's just the same process. You basically can look at some of my wet felting videos and see the process a little bit more in depth. Here I'm going to try showing you how I would use a sander, but unfortunately what you'll see in a moment happened is that after I'd done about one layer of the electric sander to save me having to do a lot of rolling work, my battery ran out, so I had to switch to the good old fashioned manual method, which you'll see shortly. I'm just away from the camera for a second. I'm just getting hold of my sander. You're going to see it come over. I use a cordless one, a lot more sensible. You can't have an electric shock, but you've got to remember to recharge the batteries, which obviously I didn't. So you can't hear the sander here because I've taken the original audio soundtrack off so that I can do this voiceover, which is a lot easier because I can follow it and give you a bit more detail. It's difficult to talk while you're actually doing the project. You tend to skip out bits as you go along. Apologies again for the bad soundtrack of my voice. I think I've got a terrible cold suddenly starting, which wasn't there when I made the piece yesterday. It definitely is there now. So if you're using a sander, you go across the whole piece sort of 10 seconds in one spot, and then you move it along, and the vibration basically does the felting for you. And you probably go over the sides 3 times each side, and that would pretty much felt through a small thickness, which is only 1 layer of wool and silk, and that would do the work for you. You're going to see what happens in a minute when I realise that I'm running out of battery. I'm going to have to resort to using the good old-fashioned rubbing and rolling method. So here we go. So I'm going to put some net down again, get a bit of soap in it, and I'm going to have to roll it all up in the bubble wrap with a nice rolling pin inside. And I'm using an icing rolling pin because it's a nice long one and it's all smooth. And basically the way to felt it is just to keep rolling, and I would do 50 rolls in one direction, and then I would turn the work right angles, do 50 rolls in another direction, turn it 90 degrees, 50 rolls until you go around the whole piece. So you'll have done 4 lots of 50 rolls. And then you would turn it over and you would do the same all on the other side. So after a couple of 100 rolls, your felted piece would be forming into a piece of material. Now you're going to see some of that here, not all of it. And you can see me rolling up. Now the resist is quite thick, so I've got to roll it quite hard to get it around the rolling pin, but it works quite well. You don't have to put masses of pressure on it. The bubble wrap with the bubbles facing inwards towards the wool will give the agitation that's necessary to make the wool felt together. Here we go, rolling again. You've got to be very careful of your back. You can't see there, but my table is put up onto about 4-inch blocks, so it's a bit higher than normal, so I don't have to lean over and get backache. Do be careful when you're wet felting because you don't realise how long you're standing poured over it, and you can get quite bad backache if you're not elevating your table. You don't need to buy fancy elevators. I've just got 2 old bits of fence posts underneath with a groove in it, and I've just stuck my 4-inch fence posts, and I've just stuck my table on top of that. And then rolling again, keep rolling and rolling, and you'll see. You unroll, turn it around, you can see 90 degrees, roll it the other way, basically rocking the work backwards and forwards. I'm going to stop the recording and split the video here again and fast forward it a bit. You might also see me rubbing slightly with my round, what you call moolie, which is a way of rubbing the wool as well with an edge which has got almost like an old washing board edge to it. So here we go, the video speeded up, slightly quicker. This will make it a bit less tedious for you to watch, but I do want you to see the amount of work that goes into it. You shouldn't underestimate. You need at least a couple of 100, if not 300 rolls of your work in order to get it to felt. I'm just there tucking in where I've got the tops that's going to be round the neck, the opening. I'm just tucking in loose fibres and folding over the bit of silk a little bit there, to tidy up the edges so they're a bit round. I'm also trimming it. Sometimes the silk is a bit longer than the wool, and I'm just cutting off the edges around the bits and pieces. Don't cut the resist off at this point. Just cut around your work to give yourself a nice clean edge, rather than a sort of rock and roll wobbly one. And I might trim that a little bit more as I go around, just to get a nice, you can see it's starting to roll up. It's also getting tighter. I'm loosening now and taking the resist out. So now I've got no resist in it. I'm neatening off the edges again at the top and the bottom. Start to see the pattern emerging a little bit. And I'm just going to roll it up inside the resist just to give it some more agitation, but it's just being rolled now around the rolling pin, not without the bubble wrap, just the actual resist, the actual draw liner that I've used. Because you put my hands inside this now, it's starting to be one piece of material. And you can see the silk inside. Let's see where the seam is basically joined up with the wool, making it into a solid piece. You could just basically, you could also pick this up now and basically just throw it on the table a little bit, keep rolling into a ball, throwing it down, just flapping it and flapping it, keep rolling it again in itself. Really just wanting to get the edges where I've cut it to felt tightly, where I've trimmed it around the edge. I'm going to do something with my felt that I've been experimenting with. So to save me having to do quite as much rolling, at the very end process, I'm going to throw it in the washing machine. And I'm going to put it on a 30-minute quick cycle with a 400 spin. And basically, the washing machine is going to shrink it for me. So it's going to bring it down to size. Now it's a bit erratic. You might find it shrinks it too much, but we'll see. Yes, you heard me right. The final stage is to put it in a very short cycle washing machine. Bit risky, might shrink a bit more than you want, but worth a try. Trial and error, you'll find what size works for your machine. Then once it's nice and dry the next day, you'll get a lovely soft look. This alpaca is very soft and fluffy. If you do it in merino, you'll perhaps see the pattern a little bit more pronounced on it. The alpaca's got a lot of wispy bits. Probably wouldn't use that again. It's beautifully and soft, but it doesn't give so much of a defined pattern to it. So you put it on over your head, fold it up in it, let it drape softly. You can just fold over the edge if you like, and you've got a lovely neck warmer. Here on my model, you can see it's with a matching pink hat that I've just made with my new Centro knitting machine. Nice lovely winter combo. Excuse me once again, apologise for the really crackly, but at least you've got a free video. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and also maybe support me, buy me a coffee. See the link below in the description. Thank you. Bye.